Well, let's face it, as far as corporate culture goes, we are hiring millennials now, and millennials, they're a very different generation. 53% or so of hiring managers say it's difficult to find and retain millennials. And you and I both know the cost associated with replacing employees and finding employees, and 58% of millennials expect to leave their job in 3 years or less and prefer to work at smaller creative companies. So with that said, the current culture becomes more and more important because there are some foundational things that millennials must have. So in your company, the corporate culture it's going to be a reflection of you in the mirror. If you're the entrepreneur building a company, the leadership of that company is what sets the tone for what the corporate culture is going to be. You can either leave it to accident, and say, okay, the culture is what the culture is, and then 3 years down the road, you have this mismatch of culture. Or you can reflect in yourself and project the kind of culture you want to have in your company. So for example, in most of the companies we deal with at our firm here, in fact all of them, we have a culture in the Western world that is built on service to the customer. Service to the client is number one. So in other words, we exist because there is a client or a customer that has a need, and our job is to fill it to the best of our ability with perfection. So the kind of culture that I look to build in my organization, it starts with me, and I make sure that everybody in my company understands that. Understands that I care about my customer, I care about my client, their happiness is everything to me. So we all exist to serve their purpose. And when it comes to how we make money for ourselves, the better we fulfill that purpose, the more money we make. And I make sure that everybody identifies with that value, because that becomes the cornerstone of that culture. And values are one of the most important things. These cultures are built on the entrepreneur's values and the values you want reflected in your company. So, the first value I think about is trust. If you want to be trusted as a leader, you have to demonstrate trust. And a culture of trust it's imperative, especially, again, if you're employing millennials. It's imperative across the board, but millennials have to have that. And if you behave like a helicopter manager, like you're overseeing everything, or worse, taking over every project you give your employees, it's going to directly conflict with that building of trust that you want to infuse into your company. It's almost like parenting, if you like. You can't say to your children, do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't work. If you're bringing up children or bringing up employees to enjoy that corporate culture that you're trying to create, it starts with the entrepreneur. It starts with your own ability to be and walk your talk. You can't tell other people to do it and then you be different. So the demonstration side of it is something that has to be with you. So don't be surprised if the corporate culture you build is that reflection of you. And if you don't like the corporate culture, you might want to look at the reflection that you're sharing with your employees. In other words, you can't tell them to take care of the customer while you short their paycheck. That's not really going to work. So sometimes you get companies with no one who's on payroll. That is the number one no-no. Gosh, your employees are the number one asset, so you shouldn't really do that. Another one that I think is important is you don't want a bunch of idiots or jerks working for you. But if you act like an idiot or a jerk, that might be what you get. But I'm telling people over and over that hiring for skill alone is going to doom you to misery. Hiring nice people, good people who fit in with the intentional design of your culture, and the people you hire, have to have good work ethics. Ideally they should be team players. So if collaboration is important in your culture, then make sure you're hiring collaborative people. Hire for their creativity and personality. I'm not diminishing the need for skill. I mean, absolutely, but you can find skilled people. But just get a pool of those people and then carefully select the ones that are going to be your rock star talent and take you to the top of your industry. So no idiots or jerks allowed. It's a bit like garbage in and garbage out. See, the old computer analogy, it's the same thing with employees. You're going to go right from that. You start right from the hiring process. So your hiring practices are going to determine what you end up with, because you can't put into the person what really isn't there to begin with, and it's more important that you attract the right people. So sometimes the pool you draw from will have a lot to do with the kind of people you're going to end up with. One of the reasons that most of our recruiting that we do comes from either the people that we've worked with or the client side, where we will pull into our business because they're just so reflective of our values, and we can offer them a better earning proposition than perhaps they have had on their own. And then the other way that we find people is it's absolutely phenomenal, is through our own people, because they know the other players. They know the other players, and they have friends, and they have associates, and they have a network, their own network, where like magnets they can draw people to themselves who are like themselves. And so we find our best sources of employees come from our own people. And birds of a feather typically flock together, like the old saying goes.